Steve Mnuchin says he hopes we're going to get tax reform by the end of this year. He thinks we're going to get past the debt ceiling problems. And the dollar, he said, you know, we pay attention to the dollar, but not in the short term. It's sort of a vote of confidence. Do you think markets would take encouragement from what they're hearing from Mr. Mnuchin?
So I do think that they'll take encouragement, but I do think that it's asymmetric. So if we don't end up getting tax reform by the end of the year, I don't think the markets would actually care all that much. I think they would continue on their way up. So there is this weird bifurcation between the markets and fundamental economics. For what it's worth, I think it's incredibly unlikely that we'll get tax reform by the end of this year. We might get tax cuts, but I would question how much of a difference that would make. The tax cut, in theory, would be to 15% for corporate taxes, but the average effective tax rate that companies pay is already 15%. So I'm not sure that that would actually boost fundamental potential GDP growth in the U.S., certainly not towards Mnuchin's preferred 3% growth figure. What would affect the markets is if we did have a government shutdown, but I think that's pretty unlikely.
And Chris, I want to get your take here because, interestingly, one of your perhaps not less consensus views is a go overweight US versus Europe at the moment. And it seems as though Steve Mnuchin is saying, look, any asset rise that we're seeing, the stock market and indeed the dollar strength, it's a vote of confidence in our economy. You still standing by that overweight call?
Yeah, I mean, I sort of agree with Megan in a lot of that. I mean, I think the tax reform, investors have really discounted it and not really thinking about it anymore. It was a big thing at the beginning of the year, and the economy has continued to motor on without the reform and without any real expectation it's going to happen. No, markets go up because of liquidity, and I think there's a very reasonable chance of some strength in the dollar here, all of which I think favours US equities over other parts of the world. You know, Europe has been the sexy thing. And I think Europe is now starting to underperform the US, and I think that relative trade has largely played out. They can both go up, but in terms of which one outperforms, I'd favour the US here.